headlines in the media. We have Fast Company. Our organizations in the Middle East, do they need real DE&I objectives, not tokenism? How about HBR? Where is diversity going from here? We also have The Economist. Workplace diversity programs often fail or backfire. And finally, we have Forbes. Is diversity and inclusion bringing us together or pushing us further apart? This is actually also in line with conversations that I'm having with other DE&I professionals and consultants, my colleagues from around the world, and also employee engagement survey results. So, interesting question that I want to tackle today, first looking at where are these challenges coming from, and then looking at how do we change them into opportunities. But before we go there, I think, let me introduce myself to you. So my name is Taisha, and I would describe myself as a career expat. I've actually spent more than half of my life outside of my home country, the US, working in HR. My career has taken me to Europe, the Caribbean, and now the Middle East, where I've lived here and worked for over a decade and where I call it my home. On my life's journey, I have a passion for traveling and new experiences. I have developed also a passion and curiosity for people and cultures, honing this by pursuing coaching and energy healing to really understand what motivates people, what drives individuals' behaviors. So as my role as the DE&I, Global DE&I Senior Director for McDermott, which is an organization of over 30,000 employees, representing over 100 nationalities across 30 countries, I embrace and satisfy this curiosity for people and cultures by living it every single day. I also embrace the complexity of creating a D&I strategy that is both diverse globally and also consciously inclusive, hoping that we are actually uniting people and not dividing people. But if we go back to this question, is diversity unintentionally dividing the workforce? Let's look at the factors that may be driving this sentiment. And actually, there's several factors. Some are political, social, cultural, but I'm not going to go there today. I'm going to look at it from my perspective, a professional standpoint, based on the experiences, conversations, and the likes. So the first thing that I think is driving this sentiment is that D&I is perceived as creating winners and losers, have and have-nots. There's a perception that for one group to excel, another one must be left behind or excluded. There's also a perception that D&I creates unequal opportunities, and it's in place to benefit only minority populations. Minority populations being females, ethnic minorities, people with disabilities. But that's not true. Let me give you an example. A conversation that I've had, which always makes me smile, is why do we have female development programs only for women? If D&I is meant to include everyone. Well, I'll speak about my organization. We have leadership programs running in place that's actually open to all. But by virtue of our employee composition, these leadership programs are predominantly male because we still have that imbalance of the leadership positions, especially in the energy sector, are predominantly men. So we, in addition to our existing leadership programs, have introduced female development programs to create equity so that we can create a balance of opportunities for both genders. But we also have development programs, we have technical programs that are open to all employees, thus ensuring no one is left behind. The second reason I think we have this sentiment about division is because I don't truly think we embrace the full definition of diversity. Diversity is often seen as the visible similarities and differences of people, and we see it through a very narrow lens. But I think in order for us to truly acknowledge, educate, and embrace the full scope of diversity, well, we have to understand it's not linear, nor is it one-dimensional. Actually, diversity, and everyone in this room probably is a part of a multitude of different dimensions of diversity. So hence, diversity shouldn't be dividing, actually it should be uniting us, because we're all diverse, and diversity applies to all of us. So I share this diversity wheel because I really think it fully captures the breadth and scope. Most organizations talk about the primary areas of diversity. We measure it, we put statistics out on age, gender, mental and physical ability, ethnicity. However, we also have secondary dimensions of diversity which shape and contribute to who you are. That's your education, your religion, your marital status, the language you speak, your accent. We also have organizational diversity. That's the industry you work in, how many years of work experience you have, the location you're in. And then finally, we have cultural diversity. So how does your culture influence your body language, your association with time? We're in the Middle East. We know we don't start on time. Also, your conflict resolution preferences and the likes. So when you truly understand the full scope of diversity, being outside of primary and being so broad, you realize that it actually includes all of us. And lastly, I believe that this sentiment of division is being driven by a misalignment of values. So in DE&I, we talk a lot about biases, and we look at what biases do individuals hold, and how does that impact decisions. Now, sometimes those biases are linked to your personal values, your upbringing, your culture, but honestly, they don't always have a place in the working environment. Me, I'm a D&I professional, but I'm not the D&I police. I'm not here to tell you what you should believe in and how you should act in your home, in the confines of your personal space. But I do believe that when you go into your organization or your institution, you should adhere to the culture and the defined and desired behaviors that that institution puts in place. I recognize that sometimes, if that is different from your personal values, that can create resistance and also lead to that division. So here's the reality. It's actually easier to have similar teams, where you look very similar to the person on your team, you speak the same language, your background is the same, you communicate, your working style is the same. It's easier. However, all the research will tell you high-performing teams actually are diverse. And when you can harness the strengths of diversity, you can truly soar. So those are the challenges. Let's look at the opportunities. So again, when you can figure out how to embrace diversity and inclusion, you can really go the mile. And so that starts with having a very robust D&I strategy. This strategy should be in place to actually bring people together. It should eloquently articulate the benefits to all employees. Your strategy should create a sense of belonging and community to your organization, not separation. When I built the D&I strategy for McDermott, there are a few things that we do. First of all, we recognize it's not a one-size-fits-all. We operate over 30 countries. So we have to look at it being geographically and culturally appropriate and relevant. We also recognize that the D&I strategy must be fit for purpose and aligned to the business strategy. So there's loads that I may sometimes want to do, but I always have to go back to my XCOM and see, does it support the direction we are moving in this year? Additionally, we need to look at how do we embed it into our culture, our values, our daily behaviors, our policies, our procedures, and move it beyond it be sitting in HR. Because it's not HR's job to do D&I, it's every single person's job to embrace D&I. And then finally, it should be complementary to the industry, and my industry is energy. So once you have a pretty solid D&I strategy, whether it's in your institution or organization, I believe there are 4 pillars that really serve to unite individuals. The first one is inclusive language. So I always say, never underestimate the power of words. It can truly serve to unite or divide. And so when you talk about the DE&I vision, the purpose, the impact of our programs and initiatives, make sure that you are clearly articulating the benefits and why they are in place. I also believe, in terms of power of words, that we have to ensure we don't make anyone feel guilty, blamed, or shamed, even inadvertently, for who they are and what they identify with. So for the men in the room, yes, you may occupy more leadership positions. Yes, you may have maybe more opportunities. However, I'm not here to make you feel guilty. Actually, I'm requesting your allyship. So the next pillar is allyship. And that's looking at how do we all support and help others within the organization. Allyship is speaking up on behalf of others. It's serving as a mentor, a buddy, or a sponsor to people that may not even be in the same group as you. Allyship goes a long way to bring people together. And the reality is, I'm an ally, even though many may say, well, you're a minority in several dimensions of diversity. How can you be an ally? But I am an ally. I can support women, and I can also support men. I can support young professionals within my working environment. And I can leverage the position I hold in my organization to support and help others. Now note, this is slightly different from the traditional definition of allyship, which focuses on marginalized groups. But I feel it's more inclusive. So from inclusive language, allyship, we go into self-awareness. This is key to really developing diversity and inclusion because we all play a part in driving a culture that allows us to be respected and treated with integrity. We all play that role, and I believe you learn the role you play through self-awareness. And we build this self-awareness through training and development programs, looking at unconscious, conscious biases, blind spots, inclusive leadership, as well as cultural awareness. So in terms of self-awareness, once you know where you stand and how you can contribute to others, that brings you forward to creating a truly diverse and inclusive workplace. And the last one that I think really contributes to to D&I is psychological safety. And this is Amy Edmondson's coined terms, which says you can express yourself freely, you can speak up, you can ask questions, you can innovate. And when you have psychological safety, that means you are able to feel like you're part of a team. So psychological safety goes a long way, and I've actually just returned from Malaysia doing a week of psychological safety training. And it was quite interesting to see how that conversation shaped, factoring in culture. So as we know, within Asian cultures, which are much more hierarchical, our managers play a larger role in creating that safe space. Because many of our colleagues told me, well, if I challenge my manager, I may be perceived as being disrespectful or rude. Because in the context of the culture, that's how it could be perceived. So we worked with managers to give them the skills and abilities to create psychological safety. And believe me, this is not a conversation I have with my Western countries. So again, as we think about the pillars of diversity and how do we shift from this division, this unintentional division to unity, we try to implement these 4 pillars. And so in summary, I really thought this was a powerful quote. It's not our differences that divide us. It's the ability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences. And so for everyone in the room, the onus doesn't sit with your executive leadership. The onus sits with us to create an environment where we feel recognized, respected, included. Thank you.